Hi, ladies, and welcome. I'm so excited to be joined with a dear friend of mine today, and I cannot wait to share this conversation with you all. If you have been wondering, as you're maybe looking ahead at or navigating, perhaps in the throes of perimenopause, and you're wondering about the cycle charting aspect of it, this is a conversation you are not going to want to miss. We're going to cover all things from what do you do when you're afraid to conceive to what about those that are still hoping to conceive in this time, and what is the perfect method for perimenopause and navigating all these changes. So without further ado, those of you that are brand new here for the first time, I'm Rita Johnson. I'm the owner of Health and Hormones. And here you'll find all things from fatigue solutions to period help, gut healing, and so much more. Let's dive in. So today, you guys, I'm so excited to be joined with my dear friend, Christina Valenzuela. And Christina and I have done an episode before in the past. So if you're remembering hearing of her, I love to talk with Christina. So Christina is the owner and creative director of Pearl and Thistle, where she blends theology and science to bring better body literacy to Catholics. She's a certified Boston Crosscheck instructor since 2013. Her signature course, Cycle Prep, was a 2021 OSV Innovation Challenge finalist. She holds degrees from Notre Dame and Harvard Divinity School. Welcome, Christina.
Thanks, Rita. I'm so excited to dive in and chat with you again today.
Yay, me too. All right. I love this. And I love that it's been so fun as I've been lining up some of these interviews for those of us that are doing the Perimenopause Workshop. So many of us are in this perimenopausal, and you and I will soon be at the same season with perimenopause and postpartum.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is just its own set of, things. I will say it's not necessarily all challenge. It's not necessarily all blessings. But yeah, we'll just start from there. So perhaps to the woman that is still hoping that she can conceive, but she hears this word perimenopause almost like it's a death sentence to her fertility. What is something that you work with or talk to with these women that come to you trying to conceive in this season?
Yeah, that's an excellent question because it actually is something that's becoming, I think, more and more common, whether that's because we're getting married a little bit later or because women are wanting to have children later into life, or I think maybe even because the kind of like common narrative is that, well, once you hit perimenopause, it's going to be really hard. So buckle up. You're probably going to need IVF. You're probably going to need all of these interventions. And honestly, that's not necessarily the case. So when we look at perimenopause, one of the things that I am going to talk about in the program that we're running this month is kind of assessing where you are in the stages. So we know that in general, for both men and women, fertility does tend to decline after age 35 for lots of different factors, but that doesn't mean the fertility is zero. And so being able to kind of understand where you are in the different stages of perimenopause, how far along you are, but then also like how your particular hormones are showing you that they've adjusted, right? Learning to identify like where my fertile times are, even when my cycles are irregular. There's a lot that we can do simply with cycle charting and understanding those changing biomarkers that can really, really help. And so I really want to encourage women to lean into that in this stage and to not be afraid of it for sure.
Yeah, that's so good. And I do think that probably is largely the fear of fertility being over is largely from what we're being told from the conventional medical world that does have more fear on, pregnancy over 40 and all of those things. But the reality is that a lot of times we just need to really lean into how we support our bodies now, the ways we've neglected it up until this point and the ways we need to support it. And that is what optimizes our fertility and overall health in this season. I love that. So what about the women that come to you that are, they've really decided in their marriage that they'll only use natural family planning, but they're terrified of conceiving in this window because all they've heard is that things are going to start to get really long and crazy. And so what does that mean for them?
Yeah, again, I think maybe we'll just kind of name where that fear is coming from. And a lot of it is just the narratives that we've been told, like labels like advanced maternal age and all the sorts of interventions that you're told that you're going to need in order to be able to carry a pregnancy, and how tired you're going to be. And look, like I just had a baby after 40. Like and I'm tired and I understand what it takes. So number one, if you are looking to avoid pregnancy during this time, there's a few things to say. Number one, it's doable, right? Even with your changing cycles, learning again how to break down the different stages, really look at how your biomarkers are shifting and what that's telling you can be a hugely empowering aspect of this time of change. The other thing I think is, as I said, is just to name it and to say, you know what, like I am in this crazy time. These are what we call our sandwich years, right? Like we may be raising small children and taking care of elderly parents. And so understanding like the external stresses and the internal stresses, like just don't be afraid of those and don't be ashamed of those things. Like if you really have discerned this need, it is very, very possible for you to be able to avoid pregnancy during this time. And it takes some work, but it can be really empowering because it's also going to give you an understanding better of like how other things are shifting and manifesting with your symptoms. If you understand the basics of how the hormones are changing and what that does with your biomarkers, you also understand how some other things are shifting, and it gives you some insight and, can sometimes decrease some of that fear or some of that anxiety that we may experience going into this time.
Yeah. So just a clarifying question I have for you, because I've definitely, especially when I was more, in the teaching NFP space, I would deal with couples that they started to have an awareness of their body and the way that it was changing and feeling more comfortable with that. And yet they were not being intimate at all. And they felt like that was the level they needed to be able to avoid pregnancy in this time. So I just wonder if we could speak to that real quick. If somebody is listening and they're like, we haven't been intimate in 3 years, it'll probably be another 4 or whatever it is, like just speaking to that place of like, what you would advise somebody in that situation, because I do find too that they're probably usually somebody that's not with a cycle charting instructor.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good thing to point out. So, I mean, there's a few things to say. Number one, I would say like abstaining during this entire time could be a very, very extreme choice, but could be something that people choose, right? I'm never going to look at somebody and say like, that's the wrong choice. You have to, you can't make that choice, because there are couples who have very serious reasons as to why that feels like the good choice for them. And I'm never going to tell them you can't do that. On the other hand, for the couple that is like, I'm stuck, right? As an NFP instructor, I never want my clients to feel stuck, right? I want them to know that there are always options. And so kind of just sitting together as a couple, and I find it really helpful. Number one, get yourself a certified instructor, understand how your method is specifically going to handle these changes and kind of what the options are within their method. Or find another method if it doesn't seem to be working for you. But also, this is a great time to really lean into that identity as a couple and to kind of think like, where is our common vision? What are our common goals right now as we're entering this time of transition? And let's kind of just map out what are the most important things to us, right? Obviously, if we're abstaining for that long, then pregnancy prevention or avoiding pregnancy at this time is very high up on that list. But also intimacy can be up high on that list as well, right? And so talking with your instructor and kind of putting together a customized plan that will meet you with your goals and meet you in your specific situation can be a huge, huge help.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, that being said, piggybacking there, what method do you see as the most ideal method for navigating perimenopause?
Oh, this is such a great question because I'm going to give you a really bad answer. There is no perfect method, right? If you are listening to this podcast, you should know there is no perfect method. The perfect method for you is the one that you will use, right? And so I teach Boston Crosscheck. For those who aren't familiar with that method, it uses a combination of cervical fluid, very simple cervical fluid observations, not nearly as detailed as something like Creighton. Simple cervical fluid, basal body temping, and we have the option of an oral thermometer or a wearable temp drop. And then we also do hormone monitoring with the Clear Blue monitor. And then we also have options for LH testing and PDG testing. So like lots of different things that you could do. I love the flexibility of this particular method. And so for somebody who really likes to collect a lot of different data points and is seeing like how these changes are fitting together and that's making sense to you, something that offers a lot of different data tracking may be a really comfortable fit for you. On the other hand, I've seen a lot of women during this time just go really simple and they're like, you know what, I only want to do cervical fluid because that's all of a sudden become a very clear sign for me. Like even women who kind of had confusing cervical fluid signs earlier on may find it easier to track with that during perimenopause. And so I really think as an instructor, part of my job to make sure that my clients are feeling autonomous and feeling comfortable in a method is to sometimes suggest something different. Right. Yeah. And so I really do like to make sure that women know kind of, again, how generally biomarkers change, and then to make an informed decision about, based on what I'm seeing and where I'm at with this change and my priorities, where might be the best method for me.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely, over the course of my years of teaching Creighton, would always have somebody say to me something along the lines of, you know, we used blank method and then blank happened and now we switched to blank and it was a different method, right? But the funny thing was, it was always different variables from what method they switched from, regardless of if they were all like after having children or all after perimenopause or whatever it was, right? Like it was always different methods. And that just, it made me laugh every time I heard it because it is so universal that there's just no perfect method. It's amazing. I love that. Okay, so what about to the woman that is perhaps again like looking ahead at perimenopause or entering into it and she's observing, but she's not really tracking. So, you know, she knows her fertile window, and she's probably done it long enough. She's like, oh, this is when we avoid if we're trying to avoid a pregnancy, and this is when we're fine again. But without that granular amount of detail, I obviously see some, you know, things that come up on my end, but, you know, specifically as we're talking through kind of knowing where we're at and what's happening and what hormones are shifting, what are some of those benefits to keeping a more close observation on cycle tracking in this time?
Yeah, well, that partly depends on the level of support that you have integrating the chart into your kind of overall awareness of how your body is changing and what your health is doing. So, you know, number one, if you are trying to avoid pregnancy, it is pretty important to actually be charting with a method so that you can see those changes happening and you can kind of be aware of what your chart might be telling you about what's coming next. So again, in my presentation, I'm going to talk about the different stages and kind of how you go from one stage to another and the things that you can look for on a chart to tell you where I'm going to advance to like the next stage of perimenopause based on that. And you wouldn't have that if you're just kind of casually observing. But if you have somebody like Rita in your corner who is going to be looking at kind of your fatigue and hot flashes and some of these other symptoms that you're experiencing, and you want to kind of tackle that with diet or with exercise or, you know, any number of other good things that you can do to support yourself during this time, having your chart can really help because you can kind of see like, oh, it looks like on my chart, my progesterone is actually causing some issues on my chart, right? And so maybe that decrease in progesterone is also the thing that is contributing to XYZ symptoms because our bodies are whole, right? And so whatever's happening on the chart is not just happening on the chart, right? The chart is telling you what's happening in your whole body. And so I think that if you have somebody in your corner, or if you have some personal expertise using the chart to kind of decode some of these messages that your body is telling you, you can put together a better picture of your kind of whole health and all of the whole changes that are happening during this time.
Yeah, beautiful. That's so great. And I think too, another piece to that, just for you ladies that are like, I know exactly what's going on, I know what to anticipate, is that in this season, you don't. I mean, Christina's going to walk you through that in the Perimenopause Workshop talk that she's going to give, which is so amazing, by the way. But that is like the hallmark of perimenopause cycle charting, is that things are going to be different now.
Yep. Yep. And you just have to figure out, okay, what is the new normal? And as soon as you get used to the new normal, you're like, oh, nope, I'm on to the next thing. Okay. And so having a sense of humor, like, this is one thing that I just really want to encourage women. There's a lot of baggage that can come with this perimenopause time. There's a lot of things we carry, whether it's, we're trying to conceive and we feel like there's this loss of fertility that we're just grappling with, or we're trying to avoid pregnancy and we're feeling this loss of fertility that we're grappling with, or we're feeling the loss of cycles, or we're feeling crunched and overwhelmed with all of this. Like, as much as we can embrace this as a time of self-discovery, of opportunity to grow with our spouse, to rediscover things about ourselves, to pay attention to our health and to our body's signals in a way that maybe we've been neglecting for the past 10 to 15 years as we're raising kids. Like, this is all an invitation. Everything is an invitation to grace. And so I like that we, Rita and all of the ladies that are going to be doing this workshop, I appreciate that we all kind of approach it with a little bit of lightheartedness, not to make light of it, but to say, this is what it is, and we're going to get through it together.
Yes, for sure. It imbues hope, I pray, in a season that can feel very, dark and heavy otherwise. So for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, we have a perimenopause workshop that's August 24th. It'll be 5 days long. I'm so excited. We're rebooting something that we did back in January that was 4 days long. This time we've added on something that's going to be specifically talking about strength training, physical fitness in this perimenopause, menopause transition time. Christina will be talking about cycle tracking and the way things shift and change. I'll be talking about perimenopause by design. Sarah Bartel will talk about intimacy in this season, which is such a great talk. And then Alexis McCanley is going to talk about HRT and answer all of your questions on HRT. So if you're interested in joining us, check out the link in the description to this video. We'd love to have you join. And thank you so much for your time today, Christina. This was so great.
Thank you, Rita. Can't wait.
Thanks, ladies. Bye.